All right, y'all, here we go. I have another guest interview for you, and I'm just so tickled to get this out to you. And I have to admit, I have been gatekeeping this interview since much earlier this year. And I literally know I'm the worst, but here's why I did this. Today's episode is a conversation with a high school chemistry and physics teacher, Mandy Farrar, and it is so back to school coded. I just got off the interview with her and I was like, I have got to save this for like right at the beginning of the new school year because I just so badly want you guys to hear this when it's going to be the most timely and effective for you to implement everything she shares. Okay. So I first actually connected with Mandy last year because she had applied when I reached out to listeners looking for someone to come on and speak about AI. And I was super impressed by her application, but I just had so many good applicants. So I kind of responded and said, hey, is there anything else you'd ever want to come on and talk about? Like anything else you feel like you do well? Because I really want to talk to you. I feel like I have a lot of AI episodes. So I would love to talk about something different. And Mandy in our conversation just casually drops that she leads professional development for teachers at her school on her parent communication process. And I was like, well, yeah, we're going to need to hear all about that. And it led to this epic conversation that I'm so excited to finally share with you today. So as a chemistry and physics teacher, Mandy has a logical and systematic process for how she approaches parent communication. But best of all, it is simple, y'all. In this episode, she walks through her exact process step by step and shares how effective it is. Again, I wanted to time this with the new school year because I do feel like a lot of effectiveness comes from starting parent communication early in the very first few weeks of school. And so I'm hoping that this will be a perfectly timed episode for many of you. So not only does she share her process so clearly and in such an actionable way, which you know we love here on the Secondary Science Simplified podcast, we also had time at the end for me to ask her a few just kind of rapid fire questions about her cell phone policy, classroom management, and just so much more. So I am so thrilled to have had the opportunity to have learned from Mandy's wisdom and I just loved her scientific brain through this conversation. And it just really spoke to me. So I think you're going to get it and why I'm so excited when you hear what she has to say. So without further ado, let's simplify parent communication this school year using Mandy's methodology, which will be shared in this week's episode. Let's get to it. This is Secondary Science Simplified, a podcast for secondary science teachers who want to engage their students and simplify their lives. I'm Rebecca Joyner from It's Not Rocket Science. As a high school science teacher turned curriculum writer, I am passionate about helping other science teachers love their jobs, serve their students, and do it all in only 40 hours a week. Are you ready to rock the time you spend in your classroom and actually have a life outside of it? You are in the right place, teacher friend. Let's get to today's episode. Well, Mandy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Welcome to the Secondary Science Simplified podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so we connected a while ago when I reached out to my audience looking for teachers with AI advice. And I followed up with a couple of teachers. You were one of them. And I was like, hey, is there anything else you feel like you rock at that you could come on the podcast and talk about? And you mentioned your methodology for parent communication. And I was super excited that you said that because I feel like what I had worked really well, but I haven't been in the classroom full time since my oldest was born, so 7 years. So I'm just really excited to hear from you and hear what has worked so well for you. So first, like kind of what motivated you to get started with coming up with the strategy and method that you have?
So this was a bit of a long time coming for me. And honestly, I think my motivation was a lot of failure too. I'm not sure like how well this comes across now. And I guess obviously for people that can't see me, I'll just go ahead and say when I first started teaching, I was 21 years old and I looked like I was 16. I remember having a teacher walk in and I was like up at the board actively teaching chemistry and they walked in, made eye contact with me and said, "Where's your teacher?" And I was like, I don't know how much more obvious I can make it. Like,
Literally.
hey, I'm right here. So I think part of it was parents maybe just not thinking that I had the ability to be the one in charge of the classroom. But I think part of it too, for me, was just a bit of a culture shock when I was a student. And I think a lot of teachers can relate to this on the other side of the classroom when we were growing up. students were very much responsible for their own actions. Like, you don't do the work, you get a 0. You don't study for your test, like, that's on you. But now it seems a lot of that is falling to the teachers. Like, you don't, students don't do the work, you can't give them a 0. Students don't study. Well, like, well, as a teacher, you didn't prepare them. And that was really frustrating for me because I really wanted to partner with the parents. I really wanted my students to succeed and do well. And I felt like there was just this massive disconnect between what I was trying to communicate and what was being communicated. So I had this amazing mentor teacher who told me, you need the parents to know everything you are doing and everything that their kid did. And that kind of really resonated with me, and so that made me start thinking through this email process much more scientifically, and I teach chemistry and physics, so a lot of what I do besides just, like, "Here are the concepts you need to know," is how do you approach this problem-solving process? So I teach my kids, like, what are you trying to find? What are you trying to get to? Like, what do you have? What are you getting to? And then how do you get there? So for me, what was my problem? There was a massive breakdown in communication. I was not coming across the way that I really wanted to come across. And what was I wanting, or what was my solution? What was I trying to get to? So I wanted the parents to know that me and them, we were on the same team. Ultimately, we both wanted their kid to leave my classroom in a year being more mature, more educated, more growth, be a better version of themselves. Like, that was our ultimate goal as both parent and educator. We both want that for the kid. And then, like, how do we get there? So that's where I, like, started breaking these down into almost like lab report style steps for
I
myself
love
because
it.
that's how I think. And so my, like, first thought was, I need to get the parents to see what I see. So I didn't want to tell them, like, "Little Susie is being disrespectful." I wanted to say, like, "Little Susie did X, Y, and Z," and let the parents determine for themselves what was going on.
That's such a smart, like, and now as a parent, because I feel like when I started teaching, I didn't have children of my own. And so my just like philosophy, I just didn't know how a parent wanted to receive information until I became one. And so now as a parent, hearing you say that, that I like, I can totally see if someone said, your child is disrespectful, like my guard's up and I'm like ready to defend potentially. I mean, I hope I wouldn't be. I'd hope I'd hear out the teacher, but that's so much better. Like, let me just give you some data and I'm going to see if you can extrapolate what we're all thinking here. I love that.
Yes. Here's the data, you draw the conclusion
Yes,
was kind of like
exactly.
how my science brain was going on this. And while that was much more effective, I found that the parents that I had a better relationship with, the ones that I saw in extracurriculars or that I had like a prior relationship with, like I had their kids in homeroom or I knew them from something else, it went even further. And so I was like, okay, let's build this up and let's make this better. So then I started, like, my process became, I need to start building that relationship before it ever gets to the point where I have to send home this, hey, unfortunately, this happened today kind of thing.
100%. Especially I found with like the AP classes. Like I try to get every AP parent to come in for a face-to-face conference like at the beginning of the year. Like you said, before there's even any potential conflict or drama, just because it was such a high stakes class. And I feel like the parents were so intense. I don't know. I think that's so wise.
So, like, the way that I broke that down, because I like very actionable steps. I am not one of those people when we go into like professional development and they're like, you need to make positive encouragement. You need to have a good attitude. And it's like, that is so vague. Like,
Yeah.
give me actionable steps. Like, what does that look like? And so mine was, I need to email every single parent with a positive thing at the start of the year, and then I need to follow up when I see, like, a positive thing, like, as much as I can, email with a good thing, build that positive relationship as much as possible, so when they see, like, my name come through on their inbox with an email, it's not immediately like, "Yikes." It's like a, "Oh,
Totally.
hooray. Your science teacher just emailed me, wonder what it's about,"
Right.
and not just immediate, like, guards up, ready to fight. And then I also found that the more that I could reward and shape the behavior that I wanted to see, the more I was able to see more of that. And I know this sounds like so elementary almost saying this, but I think so often, like, we're really good about rewarding what we wanna see in class. We're like, "Oh, that was so great that you did your homework," or "I love that you did this," or "I love that you did that." And they might appreciate that at the time, or maybe we only embarrass them in front of their friends being like, "Ugh, whatever, like, walk away." Like, but if we send that home to their parents and then their parents over dinner are like, "Your science teacher emailed me and she's so proud of you," and that changes the whole dynamic of their evening for them because of that one little thing, then that might have a huge positive impact outside of the classroom that we don't see, especially for the kids who are so used to getting like the negative feedback, or their parents are used to getting negative feedback. That's like, I got this positive thing. Let's celebrate that. And then that just like changes the game for them and comes back. And it's like, you can build more on that than just that little moment in your classroom. It just has a bigger repercussion.
It's so true. I used to try to always email on Fridays. Like, I try to, like,
Oh, that's really good.
I had, like, a list because again, data table, like, spreadsheet.
Yes.
I was, like, making sure I was tracking everybody because I never had kids come for tutoring on Friday afternoon, so I used that normal, like, I'm tutoring kids time to just send off some emails, and it was fun to come in Monday and have some students be like, "Miss Joyner, I was grounded this weekend, and then my mom ungrounded me because of the nice email you sent." And I'm like, "You're welcome." Like, I just felt like it, like, built some sweet
Yes,
rapport, you know?
it does. I don't think I've had somebody get ungrounded, but I've had some of that, like, things where it's like, "I was able to get Starbucks with my mom because of
Totally.
your email," and it's like, "Yes, awesome, I love that." So those are, like, my 3 things that I started doing for myself was, like, start off with the positive emails at the beginning, continue going, reward the behavior that you wanna see as much as you can, and then allow the parents to form their own conclusions. Which and like I said, I am an action-driven person, so I know that when I say those 3 things, and I've said these before when I have, like, been teaching other teachers about email communication, they always look at me with those big eyes like, "You know how much stuff is on my plate, and you just gave me
Right.
3 more things? That's impossible." Like, I get that. So, knowing how that works and how my brain works, and if this doesn't relate to anybody else, I totally get that, but for me, that was really hard. I don't want to send emails because sometimes it just takes a long time to, like, think through that process,
Right.
and I thought of it as, like, I have this very high activation energy for writing emails, and I needed a catalyst to lower my activation energy for those emails, and for me, that was a
That's such
formula.
a great visual for all my science teacher friends. I love it so much.
I say that to English teachers, and they're like,
I don't get it.
give
Yeah.
me that look like, So, when I do the PowerPoints, I have, like, a little chart of it, and so it's like, we all get a little science lesson right here about this. So, for the beginning emails at the, like, beginning of the year, for those, I would say choose 3 students for 3 classes. Sorry, if you have 3 classes, you choose 3 students, and then by the end of the day, that's 9 students, 9 emails, try and just knock those out. If you have a class of 30, then by 2 weeks, you would get them all done
Okay, so you're finding a
around-ish.
little bit of space during class and trying to do 3
Yeah.
kids during the period. Okay, got it.
Or, like, at lunch, do half of
Yeah.
them at the end of the day, do another half of them as much as you can, but if you just and sometimes, like, the kids that fly under the radar, it's hard to find things immediately that's like, what are some, like, really great positive things that I can send home about you? So I find if I'm focusing on, like, 3 kids in particular, and I'm gonna find 3 good things about these 3 kids that I can focus on, then it makes that task just a little bit easier and breaks it down into steps rather than, like, I have a class of 30 kids and I gotta find 3 good things about every single kid, and it's the beginning of the year, I don't even remember all their names, and all I remember is that this one talked a lot, like, that's not helpful. So, breaking it down into smaller tasks, I found for me was really helpful, and I also found, like, a little formula for me that was like, "Hey, I'm so happy to have this person in my class. I have already noticed that they are blank, blank, and blank." I would typically not just list off 3 words, but rather like kind of 3-ish sentences. Really excited to see where this year goes, looking forward to it, and then send it, send it. And it was short. They were really short. They were really simple, but they went a long way. And then as I got to know them more, I could flesh that out. I also really liked starting with the kids that if I knew that they might be kids that were going to struggle, like, start with them so I could really get that positive start fast and early, that I knew they were gonna struggle in chemistry, they had really low math scores or knew they were gonna struggle in physics, and start that as soon as I could, just to try and start building them up as much as I could.
Well, and two things I love about this that you just said. One is like that method of 3 a day, it almost holds you accountable too to making sure you're really getting to know all of them, like you said, within those first 2 weeks. And like one of my children is very much like a middle of the road student, very compliant and obedient and respectful, not gonna be a high achiever, but also not gonna bring a lot of attention to themselves to be a low achiever. And so it like encourages me to think about a teacher like being like, no, I want to actually see this person and not them just because they will very easily float along because they're not gonna, make waves. So I love that intentionality there. And I also love that you're like, this is just straight up positive. Because for me, I would see those low math scores and it would be so hard to resist the temptation of like adding a PS, keep an eye out because the math's going to be hard for your student. Like, I love that you're like, no, I'm just going to be so positive in this first one and try to get those out early. Like you said, if you know that that might become your second email real quick.
Just because I really wanna start on that, like, really positive thing, and I had a student that was failing almost every single class that they were in, including PE, but not chemistry, and I don't have, like, definitive proof of this, but I truly believe it was because of, like, how much, like, positive encouragement I kept giving him and his family just over and over and over again.
Yeah, and telling him he can do it. Like, chemistry is purely problem solving. Like, that's what I tell everyone. Like,
Truly is.
we're learning problem solving skills. Whether or not you can do stoichiometry when you're 30, it doesn't matter because you're going to learn how to like you said, like have a methodology. And so I think that empowerment is so important. Same child of mine I was just talking about, somewhere at school he must have heard like people complaining that like reading is so hard. I'm so bad at reading because I'm like, we have never said those words. And so now he truly is like, we approach reading, he's like, I'm bad at it, but I'm good at math. And he just only wants to do math. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like the words they hear is so important. So you like empower that student, like you can do chemistry, you're good at it. And it makes a difference. Like I'm so encouraged as a parent to hear you say all that.
And it's so possible. Like, it's hard, but, I mean, I would also argue every learning process is hard, even if it's like sports. Every like muscles are aching and sore afterwards because the process is hard. Like your brains hurt afterwards because it is hard, but it's good for you and that's how we get there. So
Yes.
fact that it's hard, we don't give up. We just gotta power through and keep going. And I tell my students about that where they're like, this is hard. I'm like, yep.
It is hard.
But that's
It's
how we
so
get there.
true. It's so true. You don't get stronger, like your muscles don't get stronger lifting weights if you keep lifting like light weights. Like you have to get sore and like you said, like push yourself. Okay, I keep interrupting you. I want to hear more of your
Sorry.
actionable thing. No, you don't need to say sorry. I need to say sorry because I'm just like so excited about everything you're saying. So you tell them to break it down, like do 3 a day, first 2 weeks so you knock everybody out. What else?
Yes. And then, like, as much as you can, follow up throughout the year when there's, like, a little thing, and the smaller like, even if it's a teeny tiny thing, doesn't matter. Like, I think I had a kid, he was brand new to the school, he came in, and then another student was like, "Oh, hey, I know where that class is, let me take you." And I was like, "Hey, your student showed amazing hospitality, it was really cool to see." It was like 2 sentences, but it was something, and I love to just, like, follow up with little tiny things, and those don't take long.
Well, and I'm thinking too, how good is that for your own positive attitude? We talked about bad PD just telling you like be positive. That's a specific way to be positive, like looking for glimmers of like positivity and joy and maturity and stuff in these students. Like that is a nice practical thing to do. And that's like encouraging you. Like these kids aren't all helpless.
And to tell them too, like, when I see them later in the hallway, like, "Hey, thanks for showing him his class. I really thought that was great for you to do that." He's like, "Oh, thanks."
I love
He's
that.
always a little bit surprised, but that's okay. And then I think the biggest thing about, like, letting parents draw their own conclusions, and I've got, like, kind of 2 things with this one. I have a bit of a formula for it, and it's like step 1, start with a kind greeting. Step 2, I think you should immediately say why you are emailing concisely and without emotion, because I think I mean, I'm not a parent, but I can imagine if you get an email that is not a positive one, you would want to know immediately why you were getting this email, and to keep somebody in suspense, I just don't think is nice. So
Right.
immediately without emotion, why they're getting this email. And then step 3, state the facts of what happened. Facts, not feelings, is so important. Instead of like, this has never happened, but working in a daycare over the summer was where I got inspiration for this, like, kind of example. If little Susie says that her friend looks like her face got hit with a dump truck, you would never say, "Susie was rude." You'd be like, "Susie said to her friend, your face looked like it got hit with a dump truck." And then the parent can decide if Susie was rude or not.
Right.
Hopefully, the parent is on your side and decides that was rude behavior. I've had some very funny occurrences with this that I'll share in just a second. And then step 4, offer a solution that you are comfortable with before somebody else can. And then that allows you to kind of hold that line and also sets your boundaries with what you are okay with happening in your classroom. Step 5, I really like to point out the possible good in the bad behavior. And kind of think of this as beating them at their own game while also showing them, like, I am still very invested in, like, I'm still invested in this relationship with your kid. I want to grow them. I want to mature them. I want to educate them. I'm here for them, but I also want to hold them accountable. And then, like, the last thing is, like, I am here for you, for your kid. I want to help them succeed. Let me know if you have any questions, kind of thing. One of my favorite examples of this was I had a student that blurted out I won't repeat it, but it sounded an awful lot like a swear word. And my classroom policy is if you say that, you are immediately dismissed. Like, you
Yeah.
just can't be saying curse words in class. And he was like, "Oh, no, no, it was a Japanese word." And didn't believe him, but that's not my call. So when I
Right.
followed up on the email, explained the situation, I was like, "I didn't know Jimmy knew Japanese." The parent wrote back almost immediately, "Jimmy does not know Japanese," and followed up, like, "There will be consequences." I got an apology from the kid afterwards. So, letting them draw their own conclusions helps.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so wise. One of my favorite people I bring on the podcast is my former chemistry teacher when I was in high school, and he always talks about that with cheating. Like, you never, ever tell a parent that their child cheated. You can just say, "There were some suspicious things that happened," and then, like, list the suspicious things that happened. Like, these answers were very identical, and like you said, I just think that's so much more approachable. So now, like, in those kinds of emails, are you executing a punishment? I know you talked about, like, a solution, but, like, if there's a repercussion, is this something where you're like, "The first time I'm never gonna punish because 'cause I'm always just gonna let them know," and do you let them know, like, "Next time, this would happen," or, like, "If it's
Yes.
continued behavior, this will have to be," like, how are you handling, because that's kinda hard and, like, awkward to be like, "Hey, if this happens again," how are you handling that?
Yeah, so in, like, step 4 where you offer a solution that you're comfortable with would be like, and typically I really try and show the parents, like, I am giving grace in this situation and be like, "Typically, if a student does X, Y, or Z, this is the consequence. However, since this is the first time, I am just going to allow it to be a warning. However, if it continues, then blank will happen."
Mm.
And then if blank happens, it could be, "Hey, remember the first time was a warning. Now that it has continued, unfortunately, I have no choice but to blah, 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 blah."
Ooh, I like that because I have a problem of, like, not wanting to involve the parent, like, thinking, like, I can handle it, and then I wait too long, and then it's become a bigger problem, and then you reach out to the parent, and they're like, "I wish I'd known that this has happened 3 times." So I think it takes the emotion out of it and the pressure off, like you said, if you're just being really proactive. Like, maybe it feels, quote, unquote, "silly" to reach out, like, the first time something happens, like an overreaction, but I think it's actually, like, very, like you said, it's offering grace to them and it's being proactive. I think that's really wise.
I definitely felt like that. I think the first several years of like, I can handle it. There's no need to reach out. But then it would get to those points where it was a bigger issue, and now it's like the second there's a little thing, I reach out, and I have had some, like, silly things, like, have emailed parents at the beginning of the year with, like, a missed homework, and I'm like, "This is not," and I will say that in my email, I'm
Yeah.
like, "1 missed homework is not a big deal. I dropped their lowest homework grade. It is graded on completion. It's a tiny portion of their grade. However, if this continues, this could happen. And I just want you to know that I am with you and I'm supporting your kid. And I just don't want to see this continue because they are so bright and so smart and they can do better than this, like kind of thing.
Yes.
And just making sure that that is out there at the beginning of the year before it like ever gets to that point again. Because I've been there and then like trying to retroactively work backwards. It's like, oh, yikes.
Well, then it looks so bad if you're like, this happened 4 different times in the semester, and they're like,
Yeah.
"What the heck?" And you're like, "Sorry, I was trying to figure it out myself." That is so great. I like, this is really helpful. And so you have trained other teachers in this process. So how has that gone? Like, obviously you found this effective. What's the feedback you've gotten from the teachers you've trained in this strategy?
It's been really good. I've had several teachers that have just requested access to my, like, shared drive of email formulas that I
I know,
have
I'm
for
like,
different
"Can I get access
situations.
to the drive? This sounds amazing."
And so I'll just, like, share it with them, and they'll, like, go in and, like, put out little like, change some of the details that they need to fit their situations, and I love it because 'cause I've had teachers too that will come to me at the lunch table, and they're like, "Here's the situation. Here's what I want to say. Like, what do I do?" And I'm like, "I got you. Okay, so here's a," and, like, go through, like, talk through the process with them and help them, and it's honestly just been such a huge privilege too because when I was, like, first starting out as teaching, I was miserable. I was so confused. I cried so much, and I had that amazing mentor teacher that just let me come to her and cry, and she was the one that told me, like, "You need to let the parents know everything you did and then everything the kid did," which changed so much for me, and so now, like, when I get to help others, it feels like I'm able to give back and, like, kind of make up for all the tears that my mentor teacher, like, dried for me. It's like,
Totally.
"Okay, I can give back now."
Yes, you are. Okay, so another question is, so that is very like one-to-one communication. Are you also doing some sort of like mass communication, or are you just putting things like in your, online Blackboard or whatever your learning management system is? Like, how are you handling mass communication? Because I always did like a end of the week, like a mass thing also, but then I can also see too how that then they may not click on every email of yours if they're also getting too many. So I'd just be interested to hear what you did if it's different for me.
I don't do every week. I tend to try and keep it to, like, every unit, although I don't always do every unit. It's more of at this point, because 'cause I've been teaching for 7 years, it's when I feel like there's going to be an issue is when I'll emphasize something. So like, when we get to a really hard unit in chemistry, I will reach out beforehand and say, like, "Hey, this is a statistically a tough unit because you have to know bonding, you have to know naming, and you are required to know those things to do well for this unit because it builds on all this prior knowledge. So if you notice that your student is struggling, please send them to my office hours immediately. I am here for them. I want to help them. It is so important that they stay on top of it for this thing." Or if there's a big project coming up, I'll email to let them know. I do require some of my students to memorize parts of the periodic table when we're going through that. And I'll let them know when those things are coming up of like, you need to know these things. Here are the dates. Here are these things. Like, so it's only, I would say, for things that I feel like are really paramount. I'm not going to email for every like little thing.
Yeah.
Especially when they have, like, all these other tools, like, they have Power School or RenWeb or whatever they're all called now.
Google Classroom. There's so many
Yeah,
different ones.
yes. Moodle or what Blackboard was the one you mentioned, yeah.
At what point, or have you ever gotten to the point your system may be so effective you haven't had to, but at 7 years you probably have. At what point do you say is the solution we need to come in person and talk to do that face to face, or do you ever have to like bring in an admin? Have you ever had like an unhinged parent? Or like I had a parent once that wrote me such a long email, I copied and pasted it into Word and it was like 11 pages long.
Wow.
I was basically like her therapist. I feel like there was just like a download. That was a very unique situation though, but I just didn't know those kind of extreme situations. Cause I think sometimes when we listen to these things, it's all well and good, but I think we have a propensity to like think of the outliers and apply that to all and say like, oh, well, it's always like this. Or I always get these crazy parents when really it's like a one off. But do you have any advice for those like one off unhinged situations, like a once every 5 years type of situation you're going to see? Kind of how you handle that or bring them in or what's your philosophy there?
I've gotten as I've done this more and more, I've gotten less and less of those.
Yeah.
But when there is like I feel like you can kind of read it too in the if there's like some growing tension and you're feeling
Right.
like I don't think this is getting well communicated, then absolutely bring them in for a conference. Like and I would even say like, "Hey, let's meet face to face. I feel like something's getting lost in communication because I feel like we are both here for the same reason. We both care very much about Jimmy, Susie, whoever. Like, let's meet face to face. Let's see if we can figure this out." And honestly, in this day and age, I would say always have an admin present with you just
Yeah.
because having that third party is so helpful. And I have absolutely experienced those, like, kind of insane moments. I did catch a student cheating, and I had the parent threaten to sue me for defamation of character,
Of course. Yeah.
and she copied my admin on the email, and they called me, and they were like, "Don't even respond. Like, we got this. Like, don't even." I was like,
When an
"Great."
admin, I love when a parent CCs an admin and then they call you and they're like, that has happened to me a few times. I was called the Antichrist once. That was probably my darkest
Oh,
parenting
wow.
interaction. It was crazy. And like, before I even finished reading the email, like my principal had already called me and was like, we're aware that you're not the Antichrist. So I'm just going to like tell you to stop responding. But I love your language. You really should be like a copywriter. You have great language skills.
Thank
Like
you.
everything you just said was assuming the best. Like they're dishing out some crazy and you're saying, I feel like we must be having a like lost in translation. I know we're both on the same team. Like you're speaking the positivity onto them. It's going to help like make them less defensive, you know?
So it's also one of the things that I try really hard in when I lead some of the professional developments or when I'm helping people with emails is like identify the good in that bad behavior. Like if a student is being disruptive in class, he's probably trying to make people laugh. He's bringing
Yeah.
joy to his friends. That's a great thing. We love that. The world needs more joy. Time and place, not so great, but maybe good intention.
I had a student, like, basically, he had a zip up hoodie on and it was against school dress code. So I asked him to remove it, but was not wearing clothing underneath, which obviously I did not know. Like, I was not aware. So then he proceeded to essentially, like,
Oh
slowly
no.
unzip, like, was making a beat with his mouth, like striptease style. It was like
Oh no.
unhinged and wild.
Oh, that's so awkward.
So awkward, but I remember, like, saying to him later when the admin was there, we had a disciplinary moment, like, "Love your confidence." You know? Like, you're a confident kid, but, like, inappropriate.
Very inappropriate. Time and place, buddy.
Oh my gosh, I'll never forget that moment. I love that, though, speaking into the positive. So when you have a parent conference, what do you think about bringing the student in? I personally love it because sometimes I find, like you said, the miscommunication, there's even a disconnect between what the parent's interpreting and what the student is even saying. So sometimes it helps because, like, sometimes the
Mhm.
student will be on my side almost, you know? But
Yeah,
it can also be awkward too. So what do you think about that? Or you just kind of take it case by case?
kinda just case by case. I do love sometimes having the student there, especially if it's turning into, like, a he said, she said sort of situation. But if it's more about, like, classroom policies or procedures, then I would almost just prefer that to be, like, adult to adult, and I can
Yeah.
explain, like, "This is why I have these things in place. This is why I think they're necessary. If you disagree, like, that's great, we can talk about it, but at the end of the day, like, these are my school policies, and this is the best way that I feel like I can uphold that kind of situation," and then I would definitely want an admin present, so
Yeah.
I guess it would kinda depend on what I think the major issue is going to be about too.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, that's awesome regarding all things parent communication. I have a couple other questions I want to ask you while I have you. One of my favorite questions to ask, especially because you teach chemistry and physics, and I'm a more life science minded, is there just a concept that you feel like you teach really well, or maybe like in a unique way that maybe you could share with listeners?
I absolutely love the way that I teach nomenclature because I think, like, it's such a boring topic,
Yeah.
but it's also patterns, and if you think
Yes,
about it,
it's like a
like, it
puzzle. I think it's
yes,
fun, but I can see why other people think it's boring, but I like it.
I do too, and I sort of teach it in, like, a reverse engineering type way, like, kind of inquiry almost, where I give my kids all of the names and the compounds, and I have them all on these, like, little flashcards, and they pretty much go through and they figure out the rules of nomenclature on their own. And, like,
Wow.
I've got a packet that kinda guides them through it and asks them questions, gets them thinking in the right way, and breaks down a little bit and, like, helps them out. But for the most part, they really just do it on their own, and they learn it so fast and so much better because they had to sit there and figure it out for themselves rather than just me telling them and them trying to memorize it. It's like they had to sit there and, like, learn it. And it
I
just
love that.
cements in their brain, and I have so much fun with that because of, like, how well they get it, and then they understand it too, like, "Why do these things have Roman numerals, but these don't?" And they're like, "Oh, well, because those you need to have multiple oxidation states, obviously." And I'm like, "Yeah, obviously, of
Yeah,
course."
obvious I love that. I feel like I didn't really see the value in all of the model stuff until I got introduced to Pogles when I taught AP biology, and I was obsessed. I was obsessed with having them look at these diagrams of these complex biological processes and them draw the conclusions like you said, and then we circle back and fill in. So are you doing that? Are you doing ionic and covalent, like, all at once, or is that too much?
Separate. So I do
Okay.
covalent first because it's easier.
It is easier.
And they're able to, like, gain some confidence, figure out, like, what they're doing, and then I do ionic, and I kinda break ionic down into just binary first, and then we throw in the transition metals, and then we throw in polyatomics, and then we throw in acids.
Okay, so how many days would you be spending on this?
About a week, week and a half, because
Okay.
I do a lot of practice and reinforcement in
Right.
there too.
Okay, I love that. All right. People are always asking about everyone wants to hear everyone's thoughts about cell phones because I just think it's hard. We're all kind of figuring it out. How do you personally handle cell phones? What's your policy there?
So my school actually has a really strict cell phone policy. They have to be in the lockers at all times, and if they are seen at all, they're gone.
Wait, and you're in South Carolina too, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a statewide thing, right? As of like a month or so ago.
Yeah,
I
it's
think it
great.
is. Like, I'm pretty sure I got a notice about that. Okay, so they keep them in their lockers. Love that. Do you ever have instances though where you're like wanting them to do research and they don't have a phone, or do you guys have like iPads or Chromebooks or something?
So the school that I'm currently at that is not one to one. It's a classical school, so they are very like I don't want to say anti-technology, but
Old
like,
school?
old school back to the
I love
basics
that.
kind of thing. And the only like quote unquote issue that I've run into with that is that with physics labs, I really like the slow motion aspect of
Right.
cell phones because to get the timing on something that is dropping is so hard to do
That's
correctly.
so true.
But they all have the phones, and if they have my permission, they're all able to go get them
Got it.
and then use them for the lab and then go put them back up.
Okay, I love that. So you can kinda do special permissions there. I love that school policy. I always hate to tell teachers this, but I'm like, sometimes, like, I think we think the students are the problem and all or we're the problem, and it's like, no, like, your admin's the problem. You need to go somewhere else where they have, like, better policies and better reinforcement. I have been so grateful to be at schools with great admin. It makes such a difference. Okay, what about student apathy? I feel like that's like our post-pandemic epidemic is like the apathetic student. So how do you motivate those students in your classroom that are just like not very motivated?
That one has been hard because I this year I have a class of and it's the same class, but I've got one that's, like, super motivated and one that's, like, super not motivated, and I've almost had to turn the one that's, like, not motivated into just, like, kind of a game where I will walk around and just sort of, like, talk show host style, just ask them questions and get them involved, and it's like for me, it's a bit exhausting, but it's like the
Yeah.
more engaging I am, the more engaged I can get them to be. And they are at least at my school, they are still grade motivated. And so when I'm like, "Hey, you'll need to know this. It's on a test. What about this? Remember this?" And I'm like just going around like kind of I don't wanna say interrogating, that sounds wrong, but like
But like you said, game show, like quizzing,
yeah.
yeah.
And getting them, like, on their feet and thinking and making it fun and engaging, like, I can get them to, like, kind of buy in with me, and but I am privileged to say that I do have a smaller class size, so I feel like I have more freedom to do that with them.
Right. Which I love though. But I mean, that's great. I feel like really leaning into your own personality. And like you said, if you're engaged, if you're fired up, they will be. Like I'm naturally introverted, but I also went to art school like fourth through 12th grade. So I can like channel my inner musical theater kid, like if I need to. And yeah, I'm gonna be exhausted when I get home, but like I can
Yes.
spice it up, just to get them fired up. Okay, what about just classroom management in general? Do you have a technique or a hack or anything you found really successful for managing your class?
So I had a teacher friend call it this, and I was like, "That's actually really accurate, but I don't know if it's a good thing." Obviously, I work at a high school, so I have a lot of, like, teenagers, a lot of attitudes, and when I get, like, attitudes or sass from students, it really doesn't faze me because, like, whatever. And she's like, "You will just sass them back harder." And for some reason, that just really works for my class so well. And it's like, you can be sassy all you want. I'm gonna out-sass you any day of the week. And at the end of the day, we're all gonna get done what we need to get done, and that's that.
And that's you, like, again, like, leaning into your personality. I'm like that with my daughter. I'm like, she tries to sass me. I'm like, "Sister, who do you think made you? Like, who do you think you got those genetics from?
You got my
You will
personality.
never out-sass me." I know, she really is like it's a humbling to, like, have a miniature version of yourself, parroting back at you things that you say. It's crazy. Okay, when we originally connected, it was over the concept of AI. So I want to provide a little bit of space here at the end of our conversation just for any ways that you are currently using AI that have just simplified your life and have just been really effective to implement.
I feel like with chemistry sometimes and with like problems like stoichiometry and physics, it's kind of the same problem that you're writing over and over and
Yep.
over again, but you have to figure out like a new one. And I just have AI do it for me. I'll like put in the problem and I'm like, I want 5 variations of this thing. And I do have to go through and check it because AI is actually really bad at stoichiometry, which I have found.
So bad at chemistry.
Yes, really, really bad.
No, I found that when I was writing my chemistry curriculum in 2023. That was like early AI days. And I would try to get it to help me come up with problems 'cause I was so sick of it, and it was so bad at it. I was like, "Okay, you might be smart AI, but are terrible at chemistry, especially Stoic." But now, I didn't even think until I talked to people about AI in the podcast last fall, but when you put in the example, and then it learns from you, like you said, "Give me 5 different versions of the same thing." So smart.
So you do kind of have to like double check it, but like,
Well, and I would never have it make an answer key because,
yeah.
absolutely
Oh
not.
gosh, no.
Yeah, it's
I did
terrible.
one time try to teach it so that I could have it grade for me, and I was, like, literally sitting there trying to teach a robot about mole ratios, and I was like, "I give up, I cannot do this."
Well, and that's the reason why I think so many of us are, just not into AI because 'cause we've tried it once. We realize it's not as smart as people make it out to be, and so then we're like, "I don't have time for this." Like, I don't have time to teach this computer how to do science. But it is, definitely a little bit of a back and forth situation. You can coach it up, but you gotta be patient. I don't have patience for a computer.
And it is sometimes good for email communication too. Like, if I'm really struggling with especially a delicate situation, like I
Yeah.
had a student make some sexual innuendos in class, and it was
Ugh.
like, "How do I politely say professionally say this?" And ChatGPT actually did a really great job, and I, like, took it and edited it and made it, like, what I wanted, but it was like, I was having a hard time coming up with, like, "How do you say this?" Like, "This is awkward."
I wanna circle back to that. So, you list out the 3 bullet points of the sexual innuendos they say, but you're not gonna call it a sexual innuendo. So what are you saying after you listed out those facts of, these are 3 things they said? Are you saying they felt inappropriate? Are you not even saying something like that? Like, how are you? Because that's tricky. So how are you transitioning from the facts of what they said that was a sexual innuendo into not calling it that?
I think in that situation, I actually did because I
Okay.
didn't want to.
Leave it to chance.
Yeah. I said actually reading the email, I wanted to reach out to you regarding some behavior patterns I've seen starting to emerge that I find a little concerning. Lately, the student has been the instigator of some inappropriate jokes during class. While I understand that students sometimes test boundaries with humors, these comments are not appropriate for the classroom environment, can be distracting to the learning process.
Ooh, I love that follow-up sentence. So you did call it inappropriate, but
I
I like how you
did,
said,
yes.
"These can be funny," in the humor, I like that you said that, but great work.
That one was I was, like, so awkward. I was like it's like sometimes it's hand motions or, like, sound effects, and it's like, that doesn't translate well to
An email.
an email. So it was like, sometimes I
Um,
feel like you just gotta call a spade,
truly.
and then if it if the parent does, like, say, like, "Well, I disagree," you can be like, "Okay, refer to admin," like, "Now what?" Like,
Right.
maybe this does need to become like an in-parent conversation, and you can have the student like, "Hey, why don't you show the hand motion you did? Why don't you make the sound effect that you did? Because I'm not going to do it." Like,
Right.
sometimes those situations are a little
Such
trickier.
secondary teacher problems, you know?
Yeah, I get jealous of the elementary teachers. I'm like, "Oh, that must be nice."
I know. Okay. I always like to end my conversations with my guests asking if there's any way that you've simplified your life recently. So it could be school, outside of school, whatever. So, how have you been simplifying your life?
Okay, so I've been like low key fangirling this whole thing because the way I simplified was I took your course on secondary science simplified, and it was life changing and it
Oh
was
my
so
gosh.
good.
You took it recently?
Yeah.
I had no idea. Clearly, I'm not like tracking these things now that I made it like evergreen because it used to be like cohort style, but now it's, take on your own time. Okay, that's so exciting.
So I was like, when I'm meeting you face to face, I'm like, wow, it's
Okay,
really
that's really
her.
sweet. I'm obviously just a very normal person here. Okay, so what did you feel like? What was like if you had to pick one takeaway that you're
The
excited about for it?
packets, 100% the packets have been like life changing to me. I'm still like, the formatting is probably not my best work, but I'm getting better every unit on how to do them. But
And you figure out your way. Like even I wrote biology was my first one in 2016 and then I redid it in 2020 because by then I had a new way of like, yeah, just working with it.
I discovered that doing them in PowerPoint is way easier than doing them in Word, but you know what? It's okay. I'll get there.
It is. It's way easier, but I feel like I'm too far gone. Like I'm too committed to Word and the toxic relationship I have with it and like image text arrangement. But yeah, it is so much easier if you can just do PowerPoint. Okay, I'm so encouraged to hear that.
So thank
A
you.
surprise plug I was not expecting. So I'm so excited to hear that. Okay, so if my listeners want to connect with you, what would be the best way to do that?
So I really am hoping to like put some of the like labs and stuff I've developed on Teachers Pay Teachers, but I haven't done it yet. I think the best would be my Instagram, which is at Chem with Farrar.
Okay, we're going to link that in the show notes. And then hopefully everyone listening, Mandy and I are having this interview, and normally I'm like on it, know exactly when the things are going to air, but I'm not 100% sure when this is going to air. So maybe by the time this airs, though, if you have that all set up, we can link it in the show notes. So we'll add that there if it's set up by the time this airs, or just whenever you set it up, let me know and I can add it after the fact
Okay.
because that would be awesome. Seriously, thank you so much for your time. This has been a
Thank
delight.
you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode and my conversation with Mandy. I hope you found it as practical as I did and are excited to implement it this school year. I have linked her Instagram in the show notes, which you can find at itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com/episode 195 if you would like to connect with her. And if you are listening and you are so excited to try Mandy's strategy this year, leave a review for the podcast and tell us how helpful this episode was. All right, teacher friends, that wraps up today's episode. If you're looking for an easy way to start simplifying your life as a secondary science teacher, head to itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com/challenge to grab your classroom reset challenge. And guess what? It's totally free. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you here next week. Until then, I'll be rooting for you, teacher friend.